My teams have worked with or advised many companies, both large and small, on building a large variety of generative AI applications. I'd like to share with you in this video some of the best practices I'm seeing, as well as what a typical team to get started on such a project might look like. The most common roles for building generative AI applications would be a software engineer who would be responsible for writing the software application and making sure that it runs robustly. And I've seen that when a software engineer puts in just a bit of effort to learn at least the basics of large language models and prompting, then they can be very effective in a small team building LLM-based applications. So if you're on a team that already has some software engineers, it might be worth encouraging them to consider spending just a little bit of time to learn at least the basics of LLMs and prompting. A second role that is quite common on teams to build applications would be the machine learning engineer. And machine learning engineers are typically responsible for implementing the AI system. Many machine learning engineers have been building AI systems even before generative AI took off, and I found that a machine learning engineer that spends just a bit of effort to learn about LLMs, and ideally not just prompting, but some of the more advanced techniques like RAG and fine-tuning, such a person can be very effective playing a role building LLM applications. And finally, one other role that I see in some teams, but less common than a software engineer and machine learning engineer, would be the product manager. And they would be the person with primary responsibility for identifying and scoping the project and making sure that whatever is built is useful for customers. Lastly, how about the prompt engineer role? There's been a bit of media hype about this role, but what I'm seeing is that very few companies are hiring this as a dedicated role. What happened was a small number of companies advertised a small number of job openings for very well-paid prompt engineers, and this generated a lot of media hype that someone could make a lot of money by prompting. But if you look at the actual job description of prompt engineering jobs actually require doing a lot of other tasks than just writing prompts, and they actually look more like machine learning engineers that have additionally learned to prompt. So don't buy into hype of the prompt engineer role. What actually happens in practice is that most companies are counting on machine learning engineers that have also learned LLMs or learned prompting, and it's actually not that easy to get a job, and nor are companies hiring that many people whose only job is to write prompts. If you're building an LLM-based application, it's often possible to get started with a pretty small team. So I definitely see companies start to experiment with even just a one-person team, such as a software engineer who's learned some prompting, or a machine learning engineer who's learned a bit about prompting and LLMs, or maybe you could just start by yourself by experimenting and prototyping using some of the web interfaces to try to get a sense of what might be feasible. I do see a lot of two-person teams as well, and if you have two persons in a team, probably the most common configuration is a machine learning engineer plus a software engineer, but I've seen many other configurations also work well, such as a software engineer who's learned prompting and a product manager, or really two generally enthusiastic people that know a bit about how to write software and are willing to learn how to use these tools to build new and exciting applications. Sometimes, for the larger teams, you also see some other roles like data engineer, data scientist, project manager, or machine learning researcher. Let me quickly talk over these roles as well, in case you see them in a company. So a data engineer is usually responsible for organizing the data and ensuring data quality, and often also the security of the data. And data scientist is usually responsible for analyzing data to make recommendations to guide project or business decisions. Project manager can be responsible for coordinating project execution, and machine learning researchers are usually responsible for developing advanced AI technologies or adapting advanced AI technologies to the particulars of your business. So, generative AI has lowered the cost, lowered the barrier to entry to building AI-based applications. If you or your team have an idea, I'd encourage you to try to find the resources to prototype and try something out and see if you can build something for yourself or for your business. Before we wrap up this section on generative AI and businesses, I'd like to go through an analysis of how AI is affecting different job roles as well as different industry sectors. Let's take a look at that in the next video.